this lesson we're going to talk about law of cosines. So you at this point should already have learned about law of sines. And we're going to use law of cosines when we cannot use law of sines. And I'll go through the example with you to show you how you know that when we're doing this problem. You're going to use this for the same kind of triangles. We're going to use non-right triangles for law of cosines, because remember, if it was a right triangle, you could use SOHCAHTOA. And you know that you're going to use or be able to use law of cosines when you have all three sides that are given to you, or when you have two sides and the angle that's in between. And I'll show you how you can also recognize that you're not going to be able to use law of sines. So I wrote all the formulas down for you. So the law of sines is just going to give you these formulas here for finding the sides. So you have to remember in your triangle, I'm going to draw one up here for you. So in my triangle, that's a not right triangle. If I have my angle, remember angles are labeled with uppercase letters. So across from my angle A, if I was to go all the way across my triangle, this would be my side A. Across from angle B is side little b. I just call it little b because it's lowercase. And across from angle C is going to be my side little c. So that's how I know what my A, my B, and my little a, my little b, and my little c are, and my big A, my big B, and my big C. So big A, big B, and big C are angles. Little a, little b, and little c are sides. So here are your formulas that you're going to want to use. Obviously, you're not going to memorize these, so take a screenshot, take a picture, write this down so that you have this handy when you're doing these problems. So the law of cosines is just this part right here where it says finding the sides. So it has three different formulas for which side you're trying to define. If you want to find side A, you're going to use this top formula that where it says a squared equals. If you want to find side B, you're going to use the b squared equals. And if you want to find side C, you're going to use the c squared equals. Now, what I did for you is I solved each equation for when you need to use this to find angles, so that you also have these separate formulas over here for when you want to find an angle, so you don't have to do all the solving. So when you want to find angle A, you're going to use the formula that says cosine A. When you want to find angle B, you're going to use the one that says cosine B. And when you want to find angle C, you're going to use the one that says cosine C. The two things that you have to remember using these formulas, when you're finding sides, because this is a squared, b squared, and c squared, you always have to remember that when you're done plugging in all the numbers into the formula, remember to take the square root of your answer, because you're going to get a big number. And remember, it's c squared equals. So you want to take the square root at the end to solve to actually find your c value or your a or your b value, whichever side you're solving for. When you're finding angles over here, because it's the cosine of the angle, cosine angle A, cosine angle B, cosine angle C, in order to solve for the angle, you have to take the inverse cosine in order to solve. So those are just extra steps that you don't want to forget at the end, or you're always going to get a wrong answer. When you do the cosine ones, it's going to equal some sort of decimal, 0 point something, something, something. Well, not necessarily. Yeah, it's going to equal a decimal. It's going to go either between -1 and +1. So if you get a number that's bigger than +1 or smaller than -1, then you're not going to get an answer. Okay, so let's just move on to the problems, and we'll figure out how this kind of works. So when I'm finding a side, I drew out my triangle and I left out this information so we could label it together. So angle A is 40 degrees. They tell me that side little b, which I know is across from angle B, so this side right here is 2.5 miles. And side little c, which is across from angle C, this one is going to be 3.5 miles. So because I want to find little a, I'm going to use my formula. So if I go up here, I need this formula, top one. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times the cosine of a. So I'm going to write down my formula. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times the cosine of angle A. So Let's make sure I have all that information. I have a little b, check. I have a little c, check. And I have my angle A. So I literally just plug in all the numbers. So I get a squared is equal to, and I plug in numbers using parentheses. So 2.5 squared plus my c, 3.5 squared minus 2 times 2.5 times 3.5 times the cosine of 40. Okay, now I'm going to take literally this whole thing and I'm going to plug it in to my calculator in one swoop. So I open up my calculator on my Desmos, and this is the easiest way to do it. So I have, and I'm going to plug it in here just like I have it written out. 2.5 squared plus parentheses 3.5 squared minus 2 times 2.5 times 3.5 times, I hit the function button, cosine of my angle is 40. Okay, so I notice I get 5.094. So I get, okay, so this gives me, whoops, a squared equals 5.094. But remember, it's a squared equals that, so I have to take the square root of both sides. So on my calculator, if I hit this, I'm going to hit square root, and then if I hit this button right next to the plus, you'll see it says ANS. It's going to pull my answer that I just got from the line above, and it's going to just put it in there for me, so I don't even have to type out the whole thing. So when I do that, I get 2.26. It's going to be my answer, or 2.257. So A is equal to, we'll do 3 decimal places, 2.257, and the answer is in miles. Now, I did tell you that we need to basically understand why I can't use law of sines for this problem. So if I was to write out like I was going to do law of sines, sine of A over A is equal to sine of B over B is equal to sine of C over C. So I know that angle A was 40. I know that little b was 2.5. and little b was 3.5. I can't use law of sines because I don't have a full ratio. Here I'm missing my angle C, here I'm missing my angle B, and here I'm missing my side A. So I can't use law of sines because I don't have a full ratio I can use for my proportion. That's how you know you can't use it. Okay. Now we're going to talk about finding an angle. So here in this triangle, they gave us 3 sides, and I want to find angle C. I want to find this guy right here. So if I'm going to find angle C, I want to scroll up, and I'm going to use this last formula here. This, we'll highlight it for you, this blue guy. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite it down. Cosine of C is equal to a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. Cosine of C, here I'll switch my colors so you can see better. Cosine of C is equal to a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. Okay, and now I'm just going to plug in all my information. I have a little a, this is my little a, my little b is right here, and my little c is right here. So I'm going to write it out. Little a is equal to 8. Little b is equal to 5, and little c is equal to 12. I know that because little a is across from angle A, little b is across from angle B, and little c is across from angle C. So I literally just plug in the information. Cosine of angle C is equal to, I get 8 squared plus 5 squared minus 12 squared divided by 2 times 8 times 5. Okay, so I'm going to take all that. I'm going to plug it in my calculator. So let me open up my calculator here. And here we go. So I have 8 squared plus 5 squared minus 12 squared. And I'm going to put a parentheses around all of it, so when I divide it, the whole thing is being divided. 2 times 8 times 5. Okay, so now I have this decimal, negative 0.6875. Cosine of C is equal to negative 0.6875. But remember, it's the cosine of C. So in order to figure out my angle C, I have to take the inverse of both sides. So I get angle C is equal to the cosine inverse of negative 0.6875. Or when I go back on my calculator, I'm going to hit function, and I want this cosine inverse, and I want to take it of the answer I just got, so I'm just going to hit that button next to the plus, answer. And it tells me that I get 133.433. So C is equal to 133.4, is that right? 0.433 degrees, and that's my final answer. Now, I know I can't use law of sines here, because if I tried it, if I was to say sine of A over A is equal to sine of B over B is equal to sine of C over C. So I have side A is 8, side B is 5, and side C is 12. Again, I don't have a full proportion. I'm missing my angle A, I'm missing my angle B, and I'm missing my angle C. So I know I can't use law of sines because I don't have a full proportion or a full ratio in order to use to find missing pieces. So there you go. That's how you use law of sines, law of cosines. And just depending on if you're finding whatever side your angle or whatever side you're finding or whatever angle you're finding, you're just going to want to stick to these formulas, and you should be all set. Good luck.